So today we are meeting and talking and ministering and hearing from someone that the world calls a champion. And Jesus calls him a champion too, but he was on the front page of Sports Illustrated. He played for the Mets, the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Giants. And an incredible man of God. And so before we get into the meat of today, let's take a look at this video with a little bit about his story and history.
Growing up in the south central part of Los Angeles in the late 1960s and 70s was not easy for Darryl Eugene Strawberry and his siblings. By the time he was 13, his abusive and alcoholic father had left Darryl, his 4 siblings, and his mother on their own. It was at this time Darryl began getting into fights, was expelled from several schools, and began exploring his use of drugs and alcohol. During this same period in his life, Darryl started to get serious about playing baseball, and baseball seemed like it would be his way out. In 1980, he signed out of high school with the New York Mets. By 1983, he was a full-time major leaguer and won the Rookie of the Year award. He drew many comparisons to the great Ted Williams. In 1986, he won his first of 4 World Series titles with the Mets.
Stretching out, the Mets have won the World Series.
An 8-time All-Star and home run champion. Everyone sat on the edge of their seats when Darryl came to the plate.
Driving hard down the right field line. It may go foul. Watching, and it's a fair ball. Home run! Home run!
Baseball came easy, but so did the fast lane, filled with temptations and destructive desires. While things looked great to fans, Strawberry's life was unraveling off the field. His failed first and second marriages were compounded by severe drug abuse and several failed attempts at rehab, and even a 2002 prison sentence. When things started to look up, on the eve of another World Series, this time with the New York Yankees, Darryl was diagnosed with colon cancer. Darryl wound up having to face cancer twice, and during his second battle with cancer, Darryl relapsed again, and this one-time superstar fell from the sky as he was now facing jail time, bankruptcy, and tax issues. When Darryl finally turned his life over to Jesus Christ, he was able to be free from the torment and torture and rise from the ashes to put his life back together. When he completely surrendered to God and followed God's plans and embraced it, things started to change. He didn't do it alone. Darryl's third wife, Tracy, became his rock. She stood by him. She helped him as they molded their lives together and brought their families together through her faith and strength in Jesus Christ. Darryl has devoted his life to serving God and to help those who need it most. He is committed to using his celebrity status for God's saving grace for others. In 2006, following a trip to an autism center in St. Louis, Darryl and Tracy formed the Darryl Strawberry Foundation to help those affected by autism. They have spent countless hours working with kids, adolescents, and their families. They have given back to that very center in St. Louis and have built the first adult day facility of its kind. In addition to his work with autism, Darryl and his wife are ordained ministers devoting their lives to God's work. God has called them to preach the gospel, minister to marriages, to those in prison, troubled teens, and individuals who are broken, lost, and need to find their way. Darryl has a passion and is on a mission for everyone to find and live in the transforming power of God. This isn't a story about missed opportunities or self-pity, or even a baseball player or celebrity. It's about a man who was lost and now found through the power and love of Jesus Christ that has transformed his entire life into the man that God had created him to be from the very beginning. His life now belongs to Christ, and his passion is to live as a vessel to show the hope, power, and love of Christ to others. God's love and power changed a life like Darryl Strawberry's. He's waiting to do the same for you. This is Darryl Strawberry's story.
Well, what an introduction. Today, my guest and my friend is Darryl Strawberry. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jen.
It's emotional because I was at some of those things with you when you were really battling and in a dark place, like the scripture, you know, when you were a prisoner and held captive and fighting to get out and not really knowing how, not surrendering. And wow, blessed to be a blessing. You know, you see the pictures of you winning the World Series, and most people think that's the moment, but you know, that's a blip in the radar. It's here and then it's gone. A real World Series is when we see Jesus face to face. So today, let's talk about getting well. Let's talk about addiction. Because I would venture to say there's not one person watching today that hasn't battled themselves or someone they love very much is battling with addiction, with bondage. And the world doesn't have answers. So tell us about that demon, that stronghold, that lie that really harmed you for so many years.
Well, first thing, I just want to say thank you, for having me here on the show with you, and thank you for your tears because of your love for who you are and what you've always been, Jen. I greatly appreciate that. You need to know that because we sit here and, like you said, you were there. Most people was not there. Most people were pointing fingers. But you was not pointing fingers. You were there to love me and my family, through that process and care for us. And now we sit here today and we get to share about what it really is like, the demon, the demonic force, I would call it the complete, pit of hell where the enemy takes people and make people believe that they're okay. And it has a grip on your life, and it's hard to get it off. And it was very difficult and challenging for me. It started at a young age of smoking marijuana, the marijuana maintenance, that our society called it, And
It's acceptable.
Yeah, it's acceptable, and it's just for people with pain, and the reality is I started off on that, and from that, you couldn't stop, and couldn't stop, and you go on from that to the next and the next, and you stay stuck. It keeps you stuck. Anything that you use to make you feel different is not you. And I did it for a long time, and I was stuck in addiction for a very long time. I ended up in the Florida State Prison with a T-17169 because of addiction. And I always think, to myself, God was doing for me what I couldn't do for myself. When we look back at those videos and you see those pictures and you see my ex-wife Sharice and who I hurt dearly because I was so selfish and self-centered and I didn't think about them. All I was thinking about was myself. And most people that are in addiction, that's all they do is think about themselves. They don't think about who else is being affected. The whole house get affected from that. And it tears up a whole house and leave people broken, hurting, and I did it for so long, and I nearly lost my life. But I say that God had a plan, that I didn't lose my life, and most people don't make it through. It's one of the things that, I always go back and help somebody else because for the grace of God, they go, all right.
Yeah.
And that's my love for someone that's in the midst of addiction, that's struggling with something, is to go back and tell them, this doesn't have to be this way. Yeah. And I have to make a clear surrender to God and allow people to be in my life to help me. It takes people to help people.